story?
There's a story about these people who had trouble getting into a building to see Jesus because somebody needed to be healed. But before we talk all about the Bible story, I want to ask you a few questions. Everybody kind of get in a line in the middle here, kind of like Mr. Chad there, between him and the
line starts behind
King
the giant tiki.
pole. All right, so.
Ooh, King Nebuchadnezzar.
All right, I'm going to point to two different sides of the room, okay? Hello. Thank you for listening to me.
Hello.
Okay, I'm going to see if you all know the difference between a want and a need. A want and a need. Somebody explain to me.
We're not in first grade.
What do you want in life? Like what's a want?
If it's not a necessity.
Not a necessity. That's a big word. Necessity. That's 4 syllables.
Necessities. You don't need it to live. Like,
You don't need it to live. What's a need?
Whoa.
Wait, somebody who hasn't said it yet.
Shelter.
Okay, that's a great example. How would you define a need? Can you give a definition for need?
It's something you need, like food.
Okay.
to live.
Something to live.
Something that you could not survive without.
Something
Like
to not
food.
survive without. Very good. So let's break it down a little bit. All right. This side is the wants, and this side is the needs. Okay. So if you had to make a choice between cheeseburger for today or water for 3 days, where would you go?
Water. But I really
Water
want
or
a
what?
Cheeseburger
I really want a
for 1 day,
cheeseburger.
or water, nothing but water for 3 days. Or if you
I need
you
a
couldn't find water
cheeseburger.
easily, and so that's where you go if you want. Cheeseburger's juicy.
What if it's a dry cheeseburger?
No. I want it in the middle because I want McDonald's cheeseburger.
You want both.
Fair enough.
All right, everybody get in the middle again. Get in the middle again.
I want cheeseburger.
You could not have
Okay.
cheeseburger. I want a cheeseburger.
You have a choice between.
An Xbox. Yeah, and an Xbox.
Oh, really?
Xbox
Okay.
360.
An Xbox over here,
You want my vote?
or if you had just enough money to buy either an Xbox or food for a week, where would you go?
Side
An
is
Xbox.
food,
You're
right?
playing tough choices.
When I'm playing
Xbox, you're going to the food side. You need food. You do not need to play my Xbox. I'm not hungry.
Hey, let her go where she wants
So
to
he
go.
says over here
She
that.
doesn't need an Xbox.
There's something called a grocery store.
Well, what if you didn't
Yeah,
have
but
the money?
you don't have any money.
Yeah, but when I'm playing my Xbox,
Parents
I
can buy
don't
it for
feel
you?
my
Yeah.
stomach.
No, you
Well,
really moved out.
hey,
You already moved out. You're on your own.
Oh yeah, you can just walk
Grocery
around.
stores, everybody. Grocery stores. I will fight that. Grab my arm. No, you won't.
He's coming back home after he moves out to borrow money.
Stop talking.
All right, everybody go ahead and have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat. Not in my chair though. Charlie bit me.
I made it.
Charlie bit my
I'm not
finger.
trying. You bit my finger.
All right.
Charlie.
What's up, buddy?
Charlie.
I won't. Will you forgive me?
He bit me.
I wasn't trying to take fun of you. I was just trying to be silly.
Stop talking.
It's like, stop talking. I can't tell a story.
Oh, that's probably why they want.
I'm being guarded.
All right, so we talked a little bit about wants and needs. If you were a lifeguard, remember what this place station's called? Right. If you were a lifeguard, and somebody come up to you and said, I think I'm burning. Can I have some sunscreen? Or somebody was needing help out in the middle of the ocean because they were drowning. Not in the middle of the ocean, but like off the beach. What would you do?
Get the person
that's drowning.
Right.
You get burnt, you don't die that way. You drown, you get
cancer,
cancer,
and then you die.
I'm glad they get sunscreen.
Well, okay,
No, you can do both.
okay.
Just go. Here's sunscreen.
Right now, right, you would kind of dismiss the person with the sunscreen problem and go to the person with the drowning, I can't breathe problem. So, there's a difference between a want and a need, right? Somebody wants sunscreen and somebody needs to be saved. And so as a lifeguard, you need to make some decisions. You need to figure out the difference between a want and a need. You also need some tools. What kind of tools do lifeguards use?
A floaty majigger thingy-mabob.
Floaty majigger thingy-mabob.
Majigger.
What else would you need besides a floater thingy with jiggle?
This thing. Life thingy.
Like maybe a life jacket?
A whiteboard.
Yeah.
A swimsuit.
A
Something.
swimsuit? Yeah. Anybody seen? Okay, never mind.
An Xbox.
So we talked about
Talent and
we're talking
able
about
to swim.
the difference between wants and needs.
Swimming lesson.
Okay, and today's lesson is about what? God says,
I give you what you need.
wow, you all are really smart.
I just looked at
Well,
that.
it's
We
right
just
there.
looked at our
Figured
names.
something
All I did was look at the board.
So now we figure out what God means when He says, "I give you what you need" by this Bible story about me. Remember what the first day was, by the way? I am.
With you.
And then I.
Care about you.
And today is I give you what you need.
Neat.
Very good. So there is a story about the time when Jesus was in a city called Capernaum, and there in this town was a man who needed a mat. He needed a mat because he was
paralyzed.
Okay, so there's a man who's paralyzed, and so he needed a mat. Was there anything else he needed?
No.
A
Just a
wheelchair.
mat? Just chilling in the mat all day? Not to eat or drink or anything?
Like this.
People to carry him.
Oh, maybe he needed some people to carry him around. 'Cause
Or
all
he
he did-
could, well, he could just lay on the mat like.
He is paralyzed from the waist
Yeah.
down.
Now he hoped that there was more to life than just sitting on this mat all the time. And he wanted to be able to walk again. But to be able to walk, the man needed something else. He needed some friends
God
to help him.
healing God.
God healing him, he needed that. And the man was pretty thankful that he had some friends that were willing to help him out a little bit. And his friend said, "I know what you need." What do you think they said?
Jesus.
Good vacation Bible school answer. He needed Jesus. Okay? Because they knew that Jesus would help him out.
A joint.
They knew that Jesus would give him what he needs. So I think we might have an example of a mat.
I can be the mat.
I think we have one back here.
No, I want to be the best.
This probably wasn't
I wanna
as
be
cool as that one.
I have the best
I don't think you
paralyzed
want to be paralyzed.
face.
I want to be paralyzed.
All right,
I
so
wanna be paralyzed.
there was a mat kind of like that, and
I like.
this man who
It's got a car.
was paralyzed, he wanted to be able to meet this Jesus because he heard that Jesus would be able to help him. And so the man and his friends heard that Jesus was in Capernaum, and so the man's friends carried him while he was lying on the mat to the house where Jesus was preaching. But, kind of like when we were stuck outside there were so many people they couldn't get close to Jesus. Packed in the house, packed around the house, they couldn't even get in there. And so, one guy said, "Hey, we need to see Jesus." The other guy said, "Well, we need to get inside." Well, again, it was so packed they couldn't get inside. So, what do you think they did?
I know. They got him at the time too. It's cut a hole in the ceiling and then lowered him down.
So if they were
And dirt fell on
going to be,
Jesus' head.
so if they were up on the roof, what would they need when they were up on the roof?
A rope. Shovel.
Because the tools, they would need some tools, right? Because it was like the buildings were kind of made out of clay and straw and kind of
Soil.
like soil, sort of. But they got it really hard, so they could actually stand on it, which is pretty wild. And then not only could they stand on it, but they actually were able to dig a hole in the roof and still be able to stand on it. So they dug a hole in the roof so that they could what?
Lower him down.
Lower him down. So we're going to take a quick second to see what that maybe looked like. So we've got Mr. Chad and Mr. Weston, are the man's friends, and the person who is paralyzed will be Brenda for today. Whoa! Oh!
No, I'm security.
Security?
Do not touch this man, he's paralyzed.
They laid the person down at Jesus' feet. I'm not really Jesus, but we'll just kind of do this for now.
Hey, I'm the paralyzed person. I'm bleeding.
I'm Jesus.
All right, listen.
I'm Jesus.
So
I'm dying
the person who was paralyzed was brought down to Jesus' feet, lowered down through the ceiling, right? So they had ropes hooked up to it, and they lowered the person down. And so they had the tools, they had the rope, they had everything they needed. And then Jesus looked at the man lying on the mat, and Jesus knew exactly what the man needed. So of course, Jesus did what?
Heal him! Of course.
That's not really how the story goes, though.
He's...
What does he say first?
Get up.
And then before he says get up,
I forgot.
you are... What's with an F?
Forgiven.
You are forgiven.
Forgiven for what?
That's a good question. Remember how we talked about the difference between what we want and what we need? What did the person want? They wanted
To be able to
the
walk.
walking it, but what did they need from Jesus?
Healing.
Not only
Forgiveness.
physical healing, but spiritual healing, like forgiveness, right? So Jesus said, first, looked down at the man and said, you are forgiven. Now, if you were there and you were paralyzed, you'd be like, all right, Jesus, that's cool and all, but I want to be able to walk. But Jesus knew what he needed. What the man needed first, what the paralyzed person needed first was to be forgiven. Why is forgiveness so important?
Because
Yeah, go ahead.
because if you're not forgiven, then you still have all those sins inside of you. So it's sort of like those sins are building up, and like they create a wall that keeps you from being healed.
Wow. You're going to be a pastor one day. That's a good answer. I'm not making fun of you. I'm serious. That's a good answer. That's a really good answer. So those sins, and they weigh upon us, sometimes that make us sad because we just walk around with those sins all the time. But you know, we've got a God who knows that we need forgiveness because we do mess up. Sometimes we're not good to our parents. Sometimes we're not good to our friends. Sometimes we say mean things to people. Sometimes we laugh at people, make fun of people. And those are all sins, but we seek God's forgiveness. So just like, you know, the person who was paralyzed, we don't know what his life was like, but we know that he was stuck there, couldn't use his legs. Came to Jesus. Jesus said, first, he said, your sins are forgiven. But next, this is where you can act some stuff out. Jesus said, also, this is a pretty nice deal here. Jesus then said, get up, take your mat, and walk. He didn't say fall over.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't say trip on your
legs in a
mat.
while.
He just said, get up, take your mat, and walk. And so that's exactly what the man did. It might have been like that even. I don't know, where he almost fell. It could have been. That part's not in the Bible, but that could have happened.
It shouldn't happen.
And you know what? Nobody expected Jesus to say, your sins are forgiven. Nobody expected Jesus to say that. But you know what? He did. And that's something that God does for us. And he had the power to heal the man just by speaking a few words. No one ever had seen anything like that before. Jesus was the first one they saw would do something like that. How much time?
About 7 or 8 minutes.
Jesus was happy to heal the man and to give him what he wanted. He wanted to be able to get up and walk. Jesus knew that walking was not his most important need in life. What was his most important need? Forgiveness. So that man, just like everybody in that house there that day, just like you and me and Mr. Chad and Weston here and all these other folks, myself too, the most important thing we need is forgiveness. Now sometimes I may feel like I want an Xbox, or I want a movie, or I want a video game, or I may even want, maybe if I have a grandparent, like a grandma or grandfather who's sick, I may want them to be healed. But we know that the most important thing is that we're forgiven first and foremost. And everything else is sort of a want in life. Have you ever had something you really, really wanted?
Yeah.
What are some things in life that you just really want? A dog.
Yeah.
Some of you have probably wanted video games.
Yes.
Some of you have probably
I
wanted
have Black Ops and
Black
and
Ops.
Modern Warfare.
I have Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah, my brother has Modern Warfare 3.
Wow, okay.
I want
Well-
Black Ops 2.
You know, there's some things we want in life, and there's nothing really wrong with some of these things. I didn't hear all your things, but there's most of them are all right to want. But Jesus reminds us that He's able to give us the most important thing in life. Is that, you know, we have a God who loves us and forgives us and cares about us. And that having God in our life is really more important than anything else that we need, that we want in life. All right, so what is God's promise today?
I give you what you need.
That sounded like you memorized it. That was so good. Right. We don't always get what we want, but God gives us what we need. And if we look carefully at our lives, we'll see that God's already blessed us with a lot of stuff. When you think about, you got a picture in your mind, everything that's in your room right now? Or maybe if it's not your home, maybe it's your family's home or your grandparents' home or somewhere. You probably have a lot of things that you already need or want, right? But we always tend to want more things. We always want to go see the next movie, or we always want the new CD, or we want the new video game. I'm sorry?
You want the new game system. The new
What I would challenge you to do is take a look around when you get home and look at all the many, many things you probably already have. And there's some people in this world, you know what's interesting? There's a lot of people in this world who live on less than $1 a day. Could you live on $1 a day?
No.
Not in this country. Because we like our air conditioning in the summertime. Right? We like our microwave meals, or we like our McDonald's, or we like our whatever. And there's a lot of things in this country that we have that a lot of people don't have. So we really do have a lot of things. I mean, the fact that y'all are sitting here, you probably got, you know, somebody probably drove you in a car. Probably got enough clothes to last for a couple of days before you got to wash them. Like different clothes, like you change clothes every day. So there's probably a lot of things you already have. And so we get a chance to look around and say, God, thank you for everything I have right now. And you know what we say is that we have so much that we can give. And do you know who we're giving our money to this week at Vacation Bible School?
American Red Cross.
All right, raise your hands. What are some of the things that American Red Cross does?
They take blood.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand. They give. You're right. They take blood to give to people who need blood. Oh, that was yours?
They help sick people.
Help sick people. What else? Okay, that's fine. Brenda.
When a tornado or a hurricane or something comes through, they give people like shelters or something.
Give shelters. Here's one real cool thing that I know they do. There was a tornado near where I used to live, and I was okay, my family was okay, my house was okay, but there were some people who lived a few miles away that their houses got destroyed, or some people kind of part of their houses got destroyed. And so I was out there with our church group, and we were cleaning up. And you know who came out and gave us a meal? Red Cross. They came out and they gave all the volunteers who were working hard and putting a lot of sweat out there and lifting a lot of broken stuff and, you know, cleaning up people's yards from all the trash and stuff that was thrown around. They came out and gave us what? Lucky? Well, it actually was a pretty good meal. It was actually a hot meal, which was really cool. But yeah, it was.
What was the meal?
It was like we had a little bit of turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing. That's pretty good. Pretty good meal.
I learned in social studies that the Civil War nurse founded it.
That the Civil War what?
Nurse founded it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Civil War nurse founded the Red Cross. That sounds about right. Hey, high five for Mr. History.
Yeah,
here.
Claire Barton.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name, so
Wow.
we did it.
Way to step up. Now,
Yeah, about 2 minutes.
how did Jesus meet the needs of the man who couldn't walk? What are the ways that he did that?
He forgave him.
He forgave him, and what else did he do?
He gave him the ability to walk.
The ability to walk. What do you think it means that God will give you what you need? I know I've talked a lot here, but what do you think is an example of what it means for God to give us what we need in life?
He gives us food.
Gives us food,
Shelter.
shelter,
Water.
oxygen,
A family.
family. Have you ever heard
The
this
earth.
prayer? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread. All right, you can stop.
Give us our trespasses. and
Give us this day our daily bread. What does that mean?
The communion bread.
Communion bread is one thing.
Supply us with what we need for the day.
Absolutely.
And
See,
water.
you're going to be a pastor. That's exactly right. When we say, give us this day our daily bread, it means the food we need, the water we need to drink, the family we need to support us, the people around us to
The
love
house
us and
we
care
live
about us, the house we live in, our clothes,
The oxygen.
all those things, the oxygen. Yeah,
The Last Supper.
the Last Supper, right. That's another way of looking at what the bread means. It means communion, the Last Supper, forgiveness of sins. Awesome. You guys are good. You got a bunch of pastors in this room. So, how can you show others that you believe God promises to give you what you need? That's a challenge. How do we let other people know that God gives us what we need?
Maybe like going out to like volunteer.
Go volunteer places and help out. That's a good one. Because you know you have what you need, and now you can go and help somebody else who doesn't have food or water.
Donate money to charity.
My mom, she was having a yard sale, and then there's this Santa Claus guy, and like he picks up toys and like he donates them to like kids that don't have anything.
That's a
He
great
had
way
like a
to do
whole
it.
truck.
That's great. That's good. That's good. All right, guys. Well, I think our time's about up. So before you go, we're going to pray. Does somebody here want to pray? You do? No? All right, give it a whirl here. Let's pray. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lord, for giving us everything we need, the food that we eat, the water that we drink, giving us clean water to drink, oxygen, shelter, clothing, a loving family that supports us, and our church family, definitely, that helps us. Thank you for giving us a really good life. Amen.
Oh, man. Awesome prayer. Good job. Hey.